We are back from an amazing holiday season. 3 days that we had here of celebration. That was epic. That was full of joy, to say the very least. Full of unity, full of blessings. It was awesome. Awesome. And just a beautiful time had by all. And now we take everything from the holiday, and Jack hit the road. As the term in Hebrew is Yaakov halach ladarkei, that Jacob went on his way. It's a verse in the Torah, Parshas by Yishlach, that Jacob went on his way, and we, being the children of Jacob, right? We now are going on our way. Meaning, for the past month, we were in God's ways. We had Rosh Hashanah, we had the 10 days of penitence, we had Yom Kippur, then we had the 4 days in between in God's name, then we had Sukkot, and then Shmini Atzeres, Simchas Torah. That's all God's way, that we were, enveloped, embraced with mitzvah after mitzvah, holiday after holiday. Now we have to take all of that we've integrated into our experience, into our lives, and take it for the winter months to keep us warm, in our divine connection. Welcome to Tanya Today. I'm Rabbi Ronnie Fine, coming to you from Chabad Zurich and Kedoshim in Montreal, Canada, where it's a privilege and a pleasure to share with you the Tanya. We begin today the 25th letter of Igeres HaKodesh, of the Holy Letters of the Alter Rebbe. This letter, it's a lengthy letter that is fundamental to in understanding the concept called Hashgacha Pratis, individual divine providence, how God runs the world, and how we can understand that in a deeper, profound way. And it's based on teachings from the Baal Shem Tov, who the Alter Rebbe doesn't even mention the teachings. He alludes to the teachings. Right. He alludes to the teachings. And what ensued from the teachings is that those who were against the Hasidic movement, other, devout Jewish people, they took issue with what he wrote. As the Alter Rebbe will explain some of the issues that were involved in that. We'll see in a moment. They took issue with the teachings, but we'll get back to that. Let us get right into this letter. Lahavin Imre Bina, to comprehend, to understand that which is words of Torah that we can understand. Of that which is in a book called Tzavos Rivosh, which means the Testament of Rabbi Yisrael Baal Shem Tov. And as the Alter Rebbe says, in fact, this is not the last will and testament of the Baal Shem Tov, because he did not ordain anything before his passing that it should be his last will and testament. Rather, these are just gleanings of his pure sayings. Compilations after compilations. And the compiler did not translate properly because the Baal Shem Tov spoke in Yiddish, and this was written in Hebrew. So from the Yiddish to the Hebrew, there was a translation that was not precise. But it wasn't that, again, wasn't that the Baal Shem Tov uh, um, went over it afterwards, what the compiler wrote. The compiler wrote, he wrote, finished, right? So it wasn't exact. But the concept of what the compiler wrote in the teachings of the Baal Shem Tov is precise. The concept, just translation of a word was a little off, as we'll see later on. Now, just to give a little background, that in the teachings of the Baal Shem Tov that this is reference to, that the Alter Rebbe does not mention, right, is that when someone is praying and an uncircumcised heathen who does not appreciate that this individual is praying, right, and wants to disrupt this person by asking whatever, but not because they're interested in hearing an answer to a question, but they just want to be disruptive, right? We all know such people. They don't have to be uncircumcised heathens, but that's the example that he's giving. In other words, someone, an unbeliever who wants to disrupt someone in their prayers, and he explains, how the person should deal with it, right? And he goes through a lengthy process, which we won't go through right now. Let's go.
So I shouldn't be resentful.
Let's just learn yes, why should you be resentful?
Well, if somebody interrupts my davening, that means I have to daven harder.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's go. And let's learn. So, and it's based on teachings of our sages that say whoever is angry, whoever gets upset, whoever is in rage resembles an idolater. Right? They resemble an idolater. And this is clear to all those who have any understanding, because very simple. When you're angry, why are you angry? You're angry because you lack in faith in God and his individual divine providence, that this came from God. Right? Because if you did believe that this came from God, you wouldn't be angry. You wouldn't be angry. Now, that doesn't exonerate the person who did the wrong thing, right? We need to make a clear separation over here. The person who, let's say, stole money from you, and you're angry, right? Why are you angry? You're angry because money was taken away from you, right? Not about the thief, right? But money was taken from you. That's what you're angry. You lost something that was important and valuable to you, and that's why you're angry. Or let's say someone said something nasty to you. So what are you upset about? You're upset that, that triggered something inside of me, hurt my feelings or whatever the case may be, and therefore I'm upset, right? Now, the thief or the one who says something nasty, they're responsible for what they did, whether it be in a court of law down here or be in a heavenly court, 100%. But the fact that something happened, right, that it happened, that's divinely orchestrated. That is totally divinely orchestrated. As I have given this story of someone that I know who was walking down on a misty day in New York City with an umbrella at his side, and teenage punk kid took out a gun and said to give me your money. And this person that I know, he's anyway, he took the umbrella in instinct probably, and just swiped the gun. The gun shot went off. The gun went flying, and the kid ran, and this guy that I know walked off. Right, comes home, his wife screams. Why? Because without his awareness, the bullet got lodged in his chin, and the adrenaline of the moment, he didn't realize it, and it got lodged there. Now, let's take apart the story for a moment. This teenage kid is responsible for his actions, 100%. 100%. Responsible for his actions, right? But the effect of his actions, who orchestrates that? He pulled the trigger. Even to pull the trigger, who gave him the power? God gives the power, right? But the choice to want to do that is his choice. So he's responsible for that. But the power to pull the trigger, the fact that it deflected off his umbrella, it could have deflected and missed him entirely, or could have deflected and hit him in the brain and he wouldn't be here. But for whatever reason, and that's irrelevant what the reason is, we're talking about the fact. The fact that it got lodged in his chin is God directed it that way, right? That kid didn't direct it, right? God did, which is obvious, you know. It doesn't matter even it has 20/20, you know, eyesight and he's got a bullseye, you know. No, God directed it. That's very clear. And means that the harm was meant to come to this individual, that the bullet should be lodged in his chin. What's the proof? Because it happened and there's nothing by accident. It's coming from God. Right? And God has many agents. So if it wouldn't have been this way, it would have been another way, whatever it is, right? Now, not only is it a heavenly decree that the effect of what the person does is dependent on God, but even the power that the person has is also depending on God, right? There's a power that you had to pull the trigger. We don't create our own power. We don't have our own energy pack that we create our power. God gives the power, right? The gun could have been jammed. His finger could have been maybe in the moment too weak because of the fright that he had in the moment. Anything, whatever, right? How come it was like this, not like that? Because God gives that power. He didn't choose the power. He made the choice, the will to do something, the desire to do something, right? The power to do it and the effect of it, that's divinely orchestrated, right? We see this when the story of King David, Shimi cursed him. And the verse says, for God told him to curse. And we see no place where God said that he should curse, except that the fact that he had the power to curse, right, was a power that God gave, right? Meaning that God brought it up in his heart, in his mind, that he should curse. So therefore, when he spoke, the very thought that came into his mind is a thought that comes from God, right? We don't create our own thoughts again. Thought enters your mind. That's from above. How to handle it and deal with it, that's already our choice, right? But the thought itself, we don't create it, right? So the fact that it came up in his thought, and therefore, and thereafter, actually, the fact that he chose, that's his choice. But that he had the power to do it, that's a power that God gives, right? In that moment. So, simply put, if you raise your hand to do harm to somebody, the will to do that is yours. But the fact that you could do it, the fact that you do something, that's a God-given power. From Klipa, not direct from Kedusha, it's not from God's holiness, it's from Klipa, but it is, that's where that's where we're going to go, and we're going to learn about this, right? But it's a power that's coming from God. It's not coming from the individual. The choice is coming from the individual. That's the power itself. Now, the consequence of that power, right, of raising a hand or pulling the trigger or saying words of curse, as Shimi did to King David, right? The consequence of that, it's also divinely orchestrated, right? Deflects off the umbrella, the way it deflects, right? In fact, you raise your hand and, you know, whatever damage is done to a person, whatever person, a thief, steals from someone, again, everybody is responsible for their actions, but the consequence, the effect of that action is divinely orchestrated. We need to make that distinction. Very important. Hope that's clear. Where this is going, well, tomorrow we'll continue. Any questions? Today's learning in honor of Yeshayahu ben Chayed. They should have a speedy and full recovery. Yeah, I don't see any questions. A reminder, tonight 6:30, Torah studies. Come and join us. Yeah. All right, Rambam coming up. I'm Rabbi Ronnie Fine, coming to you from Chabad, Zich and Kadesh in Montreal, Canada, where it's a privilege and a pleasure